Hi team, Melissa from Melissa vs Fibromyalgia here, and I just wanted to get on today and talk about pumping or expressing for your baby. Now, I have two recommendations when I talk to people about having tiny babies with fibromyalgia, and that is that expressing is an option in terms of mixed feeding. So if you think that breastfeeding is a bit too much and you need a bit more rest or a bit more space to be able to rest, but you still want to breastfeed, then mixed feeding is a really great option for that. And I'll talk a little bit soon about how I utilize that as an option to help me get some milk into my boys. And the other one is to express in the evening and go to bed, or even if you choose to fully breastfeed and have one bottle a day, whether it's formula or expressed, I always recommend that option. So having the last feed be done by someone else so that you can go to bed and get a few hours sleep in a row, because that really made a big difference for me. So if someone was to come to me and say, so how can I deal with the sleep issue with a tiny baby and fibromyalgia, that's what I'd say. I'd say give somebody else the last bottle and go to bed. If you are lucky enough to be able to nap, then do that in the daytime, but I cannot nap, so that's why I give that option. Now, the first thing I guess to talk about is the breast pump. Now, it really depends on comfort level, and you've got to look at the reviews and see what might work for you. But generally, if you're expressing regularly, like potentially exclusively or periods of exclusively, you need a hospital grade electric double pump. So for my first, I used Untitled. I don't know if you can get it in the UK or the US right now. I looked on Amazon, but it says not currently in stock, so I don't know if that means sometimes it's in stock, but a hospital grade electric pump is a great one for that. If you wanted to express semi-regularly, say a few times a day, maybe at work, then a double electric breast pump like the double Avent one I'll link below is a really great option. If you want to express once or twice a day, like I plan to with my third, then a single electric breast pump is a good option, like the Avent one I'll also link below. This is actually on my Amazon baby registry, and as a third-time mama, I don't have too many things on my list. Now, if you want to pump very occasionally, then a manual pump can be the way to go. I didn't enjoy manual pumps. I did have to use one when my first son was in hospital, and I was physically away from our breast pump, and it wasn't my favorite. It hurt me quite a lot. But when I got the machine again for my second son, I got the manual part just in case, and that actually was not too bad at all for me. So the Untitled manual one is a good option, and that actually is available on Amazon, so I will link that for you. Now, this time I also want to try the Haka pump. So they call it a manual pump, but I don't know that you could use it to replace a feed or an express, but I like the idea of catching your let down so that you're not wasting any of that precious liquid gold going into the breast shields. So that's something I'm going to try this time. The reason I am so amped about using Avent is just because both kids loved the Avent bottles. They have been our favorite. The teats were just the right size. I feel like they helped Wyatt to avoid the nipple confusion, and I really liked the anti-colic bottles. I don't know whether or not that helped with Wyatt or not, because he had quite bad reflux and colic, but it always makes you feel better to try something. And don't forget to start off with a newborn size teat. For some reason we had no idea there were different teat sizes in the very beginning, so that's a really important piece of learning I like to share. You can buy extra little things to help you with your expressing and bottle feeding. You can buy the Avent steam sterilizer, which would make things easier, but when we were on a budget with our first, we just bought a tub and filled it up with water and put the sterilizing tablets in, and that worked just fine. Another one is bottle warmers. Some people swear by them. We just found a jug of hot water to be sufficient, but I'll leave links below in case those are of interest to you. But please don't microwave your milk to reheat it, because it might heat unevenly and burn the baby. Now, to talk a little bit about the process of expressing. So if you're exclusively expressing, then you will need to express as often as the baby would feed, especially in the beginning, until your supply is established at about 6 weeks. I'm not 100% certain about being able to establish supply exclusively feeding only at 3 hourly. You might have to do more if your supply suffers, but that's something you have to kind of play with to see how much you get versus how much you need for your baby. But once you're established or it's going well, then you can try to reduce the frequency. So we got to a point where I was expressing 4 hourly during the day and only once overnight. But again, this didn't maintain my supply, but we didn't need my supply to stay up with the second one because he had to use the thickened formula. So just keep that in mind, I think, when you're expressing is your supply is number one, and sometimes you are going to have to express more often than the baby feeds, especially if you're not making an entire feed each time you express. If you're mixed feeding, then you need to choose which feeds you're replacing to express, say if it's the 9 o'clock one, and then if baby is due for a feed near that time, you can choose either to pump before or after according to your comfort level. This is best while you're establishing your supply. But you may be able to just use formula at the late feed and then your supply will adjust. I wouldn't do that at more than one feed at a time in case your supply reduces, but I have a friend who said the 11 o'clock bottle was always, the 11 o'clock feed was always a formula bottle and she never had a trouble nursing the rest of the time, which I think was probably some of the earliest advice I ever received about incorporating bottles with feeding, especially in the sense of helping mum get some rest, so I really appreciated that advice. Now, when you're expressing, try to sit as comfortably as possible. If you have a good pump, then you should be able to just sit upright and time yourself for the time that you need to do it. Now, to get started, you might need to massage your breast, and it can help to have a picture of your baby or just look at your baby to stimulate letdown. And it's always good to start on a lower suction level and gently work your way up without getting too strong. You don't want to cause pain. I was advised to pump for no more than 15 minutes with the hospital grade electric double pump, but check what your recommendations are. I've heard of some people expressing for 40 minutes. I don't even know how they had time. If you're feeling a little bit lumpy or sore, like you have a clogged duct, then a hot flannel on the breast and massaging downward can really help while you're expressing or when you're in the shower. Give it a good massage, like a good firm massage, like you would if you had a trigger point, say, somewhere. Just gently though, you don't want to overdo it, but you really do need to clear it out so that it doesn't turn into something like mastitis, which I was very lucky never to have. And if you're having trouble stopping flow, if you have too much flow, then a cold flannel or like an ice pack, obviously not directly on the breast, can really be helpful. Especially in those early days when I felt like my breasts were on fire when the milk was coming in, so that's a good option. It's also good to treat expressing like nursing directly, so have a big glass of water and a snack. Hydration and nutrition are really important. When you're finished, you can store the milk in a milk storage bag, and I'll leave a link below to the ones that I used. They have a zip closed top, which is really great for reopening, and you can put multiple expressions in before it's full and you put it in the freezer. If you're able to freeze. If you're just using that day, then just leave it in the fridge. Now, there's a few tips I picked up over the years of doing it. So if you're expressing exclusively or regularly that day, then you can place all of the pump pieces into a snap lock bag into the fridge between each time, and that way you don't have to wash them every single time. You can also keep one milk storage bag in the fridge and then put it into the freezer when it's full or at the end of the day. Generally, you can keep milk in the fridge for 3 days and in the freezer for up to 6 months, which was great for me because I made an abundance of milk in the beginning, but then it really slowed down. So for my first baby, I was actually able to keep him exclusively breast milk fed for another 4 weeks after I stopped expressing. And in my post about it, I have a link to an article that talks more about storing, so I'll link the article below as well. If you want to use previously frozen breast milk, then put the milk storage bag in the fridge overnight and use thawed milk within 24 hours. It does take several weeks for breastfeeding to be established, but once this point has been reached, you can generally reduce the expressing frequency. So like I said, with my second, I mimicked how the baby was feeding, so once every 4 hours during the day and then once or twice overnight. I did stop making the total amount of feed, so if I had wanted to be making all of his feeds, I would have had to add extra pumping sessions, but he had to have thickened formula anyway for the bulk of his feed because of the reflux. Now, for further information, and I don't want to overwhelm you, but you can Google exclusive pumping or expressing breast milk and lots of things will come up. But two websites I love. One is Kellymom. That's an amazing resource, so have a look there, and exclusivepumping.com is a good one for exclusive pumping. Now, I did feel like my whole life was taken up by milk for my second baby's first 12 weeks, between the expressing and the thickened formula for the reflux, the direct feeding, the sterilizing, the cleaning of bottles, everything. It was a lot. So when I read the research that suggests that even 12 weeks of mixed feeding is protective against sudden infant death syndrome, I felt really proud. I was really happy what I had been able to give him. So please don't think it's all or nothing. I literally was giving him 20 mils in a bottle with his thickened formula because any more would make the formula too thin. So if you manage to give baby only breast milk for 6 months, you're amazing. If you manage to give baby a little bit over the first 3 months, great. If you can't manage to nurse at all and you have to give your baby formula, you're still amazing. It's a big, hard thing to do, and even mamas without fibromyalgia struggle with nursing. And I did find it a bit ridiculous when people tried to say that giving the bottle was impersonal or didn't allow you to bond. It's nonsense. I didn't hold my baby at arm's length away from me when I was feeding him. I held him close to me and I cradled him as if I was nursing him. I looked into his eyes and I talked to him and I touched him. So I just don't think that that's an issue. And the other thing is that he got to bond really brilliantly with his dad because he got to also feed him. It's not necessary, but it's a silver lining. So just remember that if you're finding it really difficult, if you're struggling, it is an option to express or just feed by formula. You won't be less of a mama at all, and I will never let anybody in my hearing tell someone otherwise. Your physical and mental health is vital, and your baby does need you more than your boobs. So please remember that all of my learning shared above is just personal learning, which I've learned through experience and research. I think it's always a good idea to get support from your midwife or a lactation consultant, particularly with latching. Latching is really important to avoiding pain. But if you feel that those who are supposed to be supporting you are just forcing you to do something that you can't or don't want to do, I really hope that the information I share helps. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other tips you'd give people who are mixed feeding, especially if they're doing it because it's too painful to feed because of the fibromyalgia, or if they just need extra help so that they can sleep. Let me know. I'd love to hear your story, and do come along and join the Pregnancy and Fibromyalgia Facebook group. There we kind of talk through everything to do with pregnancy and nursing and trying to conceive with fibromyalgia. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.